Always takes a moment or two for people to hop on anyways. Okay. Hello, good evening, Tanse.
Always takes a moment or two for people to hop on.
Oh no, I'm getting feedback. I have to, it opened the YouTube and I have to mute it. Sorry. Here we go. Tanse, mito temtek, tanas pronto nitsigason nia apitawigosisin segitawak mitotsin. Hello, everybody. My name is Tanis Peranto. I am a member of the Métis Nation of Alberta from Region 6, Peace River. And I am the events and media manager at the American Indian Community House. And I am zooming in from Mannahatta, the island of the Lenape. And I'm here with some of the cast and creative team of Please Do Not Touch the Indians by Joseph A. Dandran. So welcome. I'm going to pass it over to Opalani Atet. You can introduce yourself.
Thank you, Tanis. And Kwam Kamel Muhemo, greetings. I am Ryan Opalanya Pierce. I am a member of the Nanakoke Lenni Lenape Tribal Nation. And I'm coming to you live as well from the Lenape Island of Mannahatta, also known as New York City, on the west side of Manhattan in New York City. And yes, and I had the privilege and honor of directing this reading of Please Do Not Touch the Indians by Joseph A. Dandurand. And with us, we have some of our cast. And I'd like to, pass the ball around, if you will, and have them introduce themselves. I'll start with you, Nancy.
Hi, I'm Nancy McDaniel. I'm Chickasaw, and very pleased to be part of this group.
Great. And we mind saying the role that you played?
Oh, I was Sister Coyote.
Yeah. And with us, we have Joe and Donna. Would you please introduce yourselves?
Yes, I'm Joe Cross. I am Caddo, Nation of Oklahoma, and the battery mate for Sister Coyote. Yeah.
Hi, I'm Donna Couteau Brooks for this purpose, and I am from the Second Fox Nation of Oklahoma, and I play the Wooden Woman.
Great. And essentially, unfortunately, our playwright Joseph could not be with us this evening. He has an event in Vancouver, in or near Vancouver, where he's from, and so I don't want to say too much on his behalf. I should let him speak since no one can speak to this masterpiece better than him, from when he wrote it. I know in my discussion with him, I will just share that it's my understanding that the display was initially written back around 2003, 2004. So it's been around for a while. And they did have a workshop and a production at Native Voices at the Audrey back around that time, around 2004, 2005. It has never been performed or shown here on the East Coast of Turtle Island until us at the American Indian Community House and Eagle Project and First Nations Theater Guild gave it a reading as part of Native Theater Thursdays last year. And then again, we were so fortunate to have it again be a part of the Voices of Hope Festival here at Carnegie Hall. So that's as much as I'll say. We can definitely, hopefully, work out some arrangement for hear more from Joseph at another time. But with the wonderful cast that we do have here with us this evening, I would just like just a few questions to ask them, and I'll start with you, Nancy. Would you please share with us and our viewers some of your creative process in creating the character of Sister Coyote?
Well, I've been to many classes throughout the years, or mostly many classes, and I take from each one of those classes, I guess, and but mostly it's intuition, good, bad, or ugly. Yeah, that's just what I do. It hits me, or I try to use my imagination and so forth. But each role is different, so I tend to go at each role a different way. go one way, go the other. But I have to rely on intuition, I think. And this one, when I read it, I just assumed that Sister Coyote was very childlike, and that's what I went with. But that was in the very beginning, so I seem to have strike something early on. That's it.
No, thank you, Nancy. And same question to you, to both Joe and Donna. Would you mind sharing with us and our viewers, you know, as much as you would like, or some of your creative process in creating the wooden Indian man and wooden Indian woman?
I'm was struck by the wooden man as being so iconic. I had really a harder time of getting the cigar store Indian, which I have been. I guess we campaigned and protested against in museums and places, even here in New York City, to even have these icons removed. But the wooden Indian on the bench, the way that Joseph um, has it presented, is I had to let go of that uh, right away, and mostly because he speaks, he interacts, and plays catch with and everything that goes on, and is a complete storyteller. So it was a very at the start, it didn't seem like it would be a very challenging play. I mean, challenging part, but it sure did turn out to be. That I had put a lot of work into it.
So I was struck by how it starts out, in such a way, and then it takes this turn that seems so dark. And I was, sort of struggling with going back and forth with that. But what I eventually did was decided to uh, look at the play like the end was really the beginning. And so for me, what I did was I started out, uh, with the soldiers, the blue coats, coming, and that the other characters, the coyote and the wolf, that those were really my children too. And so as we go through the play, it's almost like going through it backwards to come to the beginning where I find myself sitting on the bench with the wooden man because the feeling is like that everything has been taken. And I even ended up sadly, taking the life of my own small child, trying to remain quiet so that we wouldn't be discovered by the blue coats and, lose our lives. And so, but this is a terrible effect, of course, on the two of us. And I always think about how people believe that natives are so stoic, that we don't have emotions. And I thought how ironic then that we end up in kind of these poses on this bench of these two very, um, the wooden Indian sort of image, but yet when people aren't looking, that we do react and we do have an inner life. But I almost thought of it as having gone through so much trauma that we became somewhat catatonic, and that's what happened to us. But I made it my own story about it. I don't know what Joseph would think of this. I never discussed it with him, but that's what I did. Yeah.
No, that's great. That's amazing, actually. Yeah, I just yeah, that's one because as as Nancy kind of alluded to, right? Like each actor has their own process, and every role is different, and so that's wonderful. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, that's fantastic. My next question is, uh, would you mind sharing, you know, any what personal connection, if any, that you may have had with your characters? you know, for example, I mean, I know, you know, Joseph is, Joseph's Nation is in, you know, what is now also called British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. But I think, you know, in his description, and I think, you know, a lot of what happens, he describes of what happened to his nation, the nations around him. However, even in the description, he talks about how these things that happened, you know, happened to many native nations across Turtle Island. And so, you know, yeah, if there was anything that that, you know, that struck you either personally or culturally, you know, in any part of the play, that, you know, is there anything like that that you wish to share with us, to our viewers? And I'll start with you, Nancy.
Yeah, I think that in the beginning of just relating to Joseph's wonderful monologues, these are just amazing monologues. And I was really struck by the first one, in which the character of the Sister Coyote goes to the carnival, which harkened back to when I was a kid. And I lived in Missouri, in the rural part of Missouri, Ozark, Missouri, to be exact. And so my folks would take me to the state fairs, which always had a kind of carny side to it. And my aunt and I used to go into the tents and see these strange creatures. And of course, it was all pretty much fake, of course, but that's what I related to right away. And I think that got me going into the character. The other monologues, with the baseball, I don't have much experience with the baseball, but either watching it or experiencing it myself as a kid or older. But I just love these monologues, and they draw you in. And as I was watching tonight, they're really tremendously, um, you really get engaged and drawn in.
I mean, I even like the monologue in terms of the stuff with the carnival and the, like, the bearded lady or the head and all that stuff. I mean, you could go to the one time we went to the Feast of San Gennaro here in New York City, and they have stuff like that. You know,
Really?
like, yeah. So I, every time I hear that, I think of that too. So it's, yeah, they're all over.
Kids love that kind of stuff anyway, you know.
Yeah,
The weirder the better, I guess, or some kids do. I think I have
yeah.
a little bit of that.
Great, great. And Joe and Donna, would you mind sharing with us, you know, any personal connection that you feel you may have with the Wooden Indian man and woman?
It brought up, I don't know whether you call it trauma or not, but it's possible that each of us would go through our characters and suffering the loss of their own life. And what I did to keep away from that was ended up in my mind focusing on many of the other moments in my life that I've gone through, where I kind of feel like this wooden Indian. And the one most prevalent for me is that of the warrior. And I know this is a different topic, perhaps, but it's mine. So I feel open to it. That yeah, when I was growing up, I should start off by saying that you hear warrior everything now, wounded warrior, and well, when I was growing up, like in the 50s and the 60s, that's a long time ago. Warrior meant a cartoon, something that Popeye fought against in a cartoon, and John Wayne, that's what a warrior was. And eventually it got, I guess, with the Apache helicopter and the Black Hawk helicopter, people trying to bring in Native American values, I'll call that. into the military system. And eventually they started landing on these warrior things because they thought we had warrior societies. And of course, a warrior society is a huge misnomer. And I was very much against that. But it's fighting a losing battle when you're kind of like one Native American Vietnam veteran. I was in the Marine Corps in Vietnam. And those things became very useful to the military, so we were just overwhelmed with it. But my one voice um, in working on the wooden Indian was to keep reminding myself that this is what other people see, and that's what Joseph is bringing out, is the inside of that. But maybe he'll write a piece about the warriors. Who knows? But it, it's taking a stoic kind of a monolith type of impression of what a native ideal is, and bringing out a lot of life to it. Something as a Native American veteran, I can't call. I just kind of hate calling myself a warrior, and so that's what I attached myself to. And on the other hand, I had fun with the pitching and catching thing. That was right up my alley. And that was my dad was an umpire, and I was an umpire, and a lot of baseball and softball. All of my sisters played softball, so that was a lot of fun. Uh, I thought he could have expounded on that a lot more. I think we could have gone for inning number 2.
Well, I was reminded of some family stories because of the content of the play. And one of them is I mentioned that I'm Sac and Fox Nation from Oklahoma. So as it turns out, yeah, the Army used to come to your reservation and pick up the kids, and they would take them to the residential schools, like they call them in Canada. But there's one out here, Carlisle school, and so a couple of my relatives uh, went through that system there. Um, and I remember one time going to the library. I think it's called the Library of Congress, and they had microfiche, and you could look up some of your relatives, and they had some stories there. And one of them, his name was John, and they had a real hard time trying to keep John at Carlisle because he would escape, and they would have all these letters back and forth, and tell the superintendents and people to be on the lookout for him because he was somewhere between Carlisle and home. And they returned him several times, and then the young woman, I think her name was Letty. Letty was quite young, and so she didn't like the system either. But sometimes they would let them go home and visit their families for a short time. So one time she didn't come back, and so what she managed to do was to get married at a very young age, so she would never have to go back to Carlisle. So there was that experience, and then the other one was the carnival. I heard stories from my own father how tough it was. The Depression was tough for everybody in the United States, but especially tough, I believe, for Native people. And that there were times they were always looking for work or trying to find a way just to survive, and along with the hunting of rabbits and things like that my dad and his brother did. Yeah, my dad and his mom joined a carnival, and they traveled with the carnival for a time. And she was one of the women, I guess, that would come out, and they did a little dance. And, he even had the whole spiel down about the carnival barker, how they would call people, you know, over to have a look at these different shows. And the other thing that he did was that he was quite young, really, and he helped put the tent pegs in, and so that's how they made money for a while. And then she really went to the big time. My grandmother was part of what was called a wing walking circus. They said that she did these stunt things, and she would walk on the wings of airplanes with other women. And so these were just some of the things they had to do to survive.
Yeah, I mean, these are these are incredible stories, and I, and I'll just I'll just say also, as the director of the piece, I besides the the rich writing and stories that Joseph wrote, I had a feeling that we had so many talented and experienced and elders in our community that have so much experience and talent and everything, and I figured that they would bring so much to these roles and to this story. So and I and I'm I'm just so glad that my instinct was right on all that, because all of you brought so much to it. And I'll also just give a shout out to as well as to Wolfram De Castro and George Stonefish and Abby Ybarra, and as well as um, Sarah Dennison and Jessica Ranville, who also did a wonderful job in rounding out our cast tonight. So yeah. I guess this is the well. I guess I'll just also ask. Would you mind sharing with us and our viewers any of your upcoming projects that you're involved in? Start with Nancy.
It's a little quiet right now,
Sure. That's true.
but I've been painting, which is my other great love, I guess. And um, not as much as I really should, but I've been doing, what I can.
Hmm.
Um,
Well, I've seen some of your paintings. They're incredible, and so I'll just let everyone know that. And theaters are starting up, and we'll make sure to get you busy, Nancy.
well, I paint racehorses, and the horse racing community is a big theme of mine. And the Kentucky Derby is coming up this Saturday, so this is an exciting time for horse racing fans.
Absolutely.
My parents love horse racing.
Oh,
I have to tell them about your paintings. Where
yeah.
can we find them?
Well, I have a bunch here at home around on the walls and so forth, but I have about 7 in Oklahoma. Remington Park Racetrack has, I think, about four or five, and the Chickasaw Nation has 3 of my paintings, which I did of Cheata, who is a very famous singer and actor of years ago. And she's actually a distant cousin of mine. So very proud of that. She lived here in New York.
Wow, I didn't know that.
She was a storyteller of great renown.
Okay, thanks, Nancy. Yeah. And Joe and Donna?
Well, tell them what we're working on now.
Oh yeah, what you're working on now, or anything in
We're
the
telling you,
near
hand me
future?
that, and I'll read that, Donna. It's called The Monk, the Crow, The Hermit, and something else. Written by a Navajo writer, Rihanna Yazi, and it's kind of Native American New Age self-help, and a couple of I'm calling them teenagers just because I'm so old, and their struggles with trying to help me, an alcoholic uncle, and he has sisters and a wife and cousins and everything. It's a fairly close knit family, and they have an intervention, and it is a work in progress. We're going to get a new script. Um, we're doing it tomorrow. The live Zoom is tomorrow, and we're expecting rewrites even at that. So if you tune in and watch it, it'll be kind of like you guys do, introduce the play as that. So I'm not doing a good job of explaining just how underdeveloped that it really is, but you understand, and with Zoom too.
Well, it's for the benefit, of the playwright to hear it so that they can continue to develop it. And so we're just very proud to be with the process, and helping out in that way. And then we go right into a rehearsal for William Yellowrobe's play, Raising, I don't know how to say it, Chuska or something like that. It's a word which means money, I guess, in the Assiniboine language. And we seems like we've done this once before in the past, and it must be like a rewrite of that. So we have an overlapping day tomorrow. So we're very blessed, and we always enjoy working with you, Ryan, and the Eagle Project, and also Tanis and Melissa, um, from the community house. And I really give great thanks to all of you for keeping us going with this Zoom process, because what are actors to do if you can't be in front of an audience, a live audience like we're used to. So this has really been very, very helpful and just much appreciated. So thank you all.
Yes, thank you.
And Wanishi, thank you to all. Oh, I'm sorry, Joe, are you?
Oh, I'm definitely seconding what Donna has said, that you younger folk have really stepped up to the plate. I'm sure that there are other communities and other people are out there who are doing things that we see. We only see what people come up in, better productions, as in more money. So what you guys have done, more on a shoestring budget, is just phenomenal. Thank God for Zoom, and that your ideas I think have been at the forefront. And I'm so proud of you.
Very well, Wanishi, Joe, and thank you for that, and thank you to all of you for being in for bringing your talents to and spirit to our projects, and we want to thank all our viewers for being with us, yes, through Native Theater Thursdays and through the Voices of Hope at Carnegie Hall. I also want to give a shout out to Yakawinahe Oaks, whose work and vision was crucial to all of this happening. So we have to give a great big thank you to her as well. And yes, it's been great for both. As I'm founder of Eagle Project, to be joining with the American Indian Community House, of which I've also been a member for many years, and as well as First Nations Theater Guild, to join forces to do these projects. It's been fantastic. And so with that, I'll pass it to one of our producers, Tanis Paranto.
Yeah, it's been such a great one of those silver linings we always talk about in this pivot. I heard someone say they call it the great, or a director I worked with, she's calling it the great pause that we're in right now, Laurie Woolery. I love it. Thank you so much. We're so happy that you could all join us back again for this remounting these roles that you got to take on during our Native Theater Thursday series last year, and Ryan directing again. So Ryan, I have a couple of questions for you before we end. Firstly, because I don't remember how you came across this play, but you've known of it for quite some time, because you had plans to, I think, do a reading of it or a production of it. But I just would love to hear what that process was like, and what drew you to it.
Yes, we actually did have plans, pre-pandemic, in terms of doing a live reading of it, and many of the people that I was hoping to have cast, we did have cast in the virtual readings, including the actors that are with us this evening. So some of it did work out. But I spoke with Joseph in terms of trying to bring him to New York, and have a lot, a 3 or 4 day workshop of the play. I mean, in some ways, I would say he, in my conversations with him, I think he's saying, the play obviously, it has been written for a long time and is developed, but still, he was interested to see how after all these years, how the play basically plays today. How it still resonates with audiences, and then of course also to see how it resonates with people on the East Coast, as he's never had his work done in New York or any other place on the East Coast of Turtle Island. So we were in the process of trying to find a time and way to make that happen, and then the pandemic hit, and I told him we're still interested in it, but with what's happening right now, I just don't know how or when it's going to happen. I think I contacted him like in early April when it really felt like the world was just world as we knew it was just coming to an end. He didn't, who knows when anything was going to happen, and he understood, and so then with when we did Native Theater Thursdays, I thought, well, this play may be a good candidate for that in terms of obviously it's may not be as great as bringing Joseph here to the East Coast, but at least it can be a way to get the play exposed to a lot more people, and to get cast members that I wanted involved in it, like Joe, Donna, and Nancy, and the others that were involved, to at least have it done virtually. And so I thought it was a beautifully written play. I think we'd even had it was one of those plays that when Joseph submitted it, it was so fascinating to read on the page, but yet I wanted to hear it out loud, and because I was like, it's one of those things there's a difference between reading the play and then also listening to a play. And so we did actually have a closed reading in my apartment pre-pandemic, in terms of just so I and some other members of Eagle Project Steering Committee could hear the play, listen to, and that's when we started the process of saying, oh wow, we really do like it. Let's try to move forward with it, and with an in-person workshop, and then the pandemic hit, and then we and then we went to do it virtually.
Yeah, and that actually brings me to my next question. Moving everything with theater from in person to virtually, there's definitely challenges that we see, that we're all acting and interacting with our computer screens now.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love to hear how directing on Zoom if you have to change the way you approach directing, if you're doing it virtually versus in the room, and what kind of challenges or what, if there's any discoveries that you've had. That I feel like there are pros and cons to every situation. If you could just speak to that, how that process is.
Well, just in my experience so far, I mean, I still think the essence and rules of acting and directing and telling a story, I think still the essence is still the same. I think that the techniques of good acting and being connected and being active and being grounded and playing off each other, I think I think that the essence of that is still the same, and rhythm. I mean, sometimes there is a delay on Zoom, and there are some things that sometimes can be outside our control, but nonetheless, I think there still are, the essence of good storytelling is still there. I will say, I'm still learning personally. As much as I've done Zoom now, I'm still learning new things about it in terms of how it operates, as well as with the other piece that I was fortunate to do, Soledad, in terms of even just learning more how to tailor what it is we're doing to the medium that we're doing it with. And like, for example, like today, we you know, we worked out in rehearsal some great things with the tourist in terms of interacting with all the actors, and unfortunately, you know, some of that didn't get seen due to some of the parameters of Zoom or the window and whatnot, and so you know, so in the future there's a way to try to communicate in terms of, okay, well, how, you know, how are the inner workings technically beyond just what we're doing in rehearsal? What are the technical things that are happening afterwards that we can that can help tailor a little bit more of what we're doing on the Zoom camera or on stage, you know, for the cameras. So there are, you know, there are little things like that that I'm learning. Okay, how, because I'm not you know, I'm not a film director. That's not my that's not my craft. So this is adding another element to it that yeah, you know, to do more of it, I would have to learn. I would like to learn more of it, and I think we should continue to do some of it. I mean, I think, you know, when we do go back to being live, I think there should be a mixture of doing live things, but then also doing theater via Zoom or online, because I think there are some advantages to it in terms of certainly financially, but then also in terms of who it can reach. You know, we can reach people that otherwise could not be physically in a theater. So so I hope there is a place for it after July 1st.
Yeah, 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 and on the flip side of that, and what we've gotten to do also by providing these opportunities for actors and playwrights and directors virtually is that, sure, the audience reaches farther, but so is the reach into the communities that wouldn't normally get these opportunities to perform, possibly.
Yeah, that's right.
So I definitely think it will continue, and we're certainly going to continue our work. And we'll see what happens July 1st. We're going to need some more details, de Blasio, which I'm sure he's giving soon. But well, on that note, Ryan, why don't you let us know if there's anything you're working on you'd like to share that's upcoming?
Sure. Well, actually, I am also doing the. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly as well, but the raising Mazaska by Bill Yellowrobe. So we'll be working on that over the next few days. I actually am writing an audio play for well, it's Playwrights Horizons and Parsnip Ship. So I'm in the process of doing that, and those are the two most immediate things that I'm doing right now. So
Right on. And so those plays that's at is it so YIPAP? I was just say YIPAP because that's the acronym, but Yale Indigenous Performing Arts something. YIPAP is the program at Yale. I think that this is happening under with Raising Mazaska and the Hermit and the Crow and the I forget the title already. But folks can find that information. Is that public? Is it public readings, or is it just private workshop readings internally?
Oh, we got a message from Maddie, I think it Madeline say it to pass the word. So
okay.
I don't know how to do that exactly. I don't know how to get you a link or whatever, but it's
okay.
on tomorrow at about 7 o'clock, Joe.
Yep.
Okay, well, if it's public information, then it'll probably be on Yale's Indigenous Performing Arts
Thank you.
website or Facebook or social media or something. I just forget what that last P stands for.
I do too. I don't think we knew the whole word.
I could Google it. Well, thank you everyone so much for joining us. I know it's late over here on the East Coast, and we are so sad that Joseph couldn't join us, but he's over on the West Coast. Joseph A. Dandran is a member of the Kwantlen First Nation located on the Fraser River about 20 minutes east of Vancouver. He resides there with his 3 children, Danessa, Marilise, and Jace. Joseph is the director of the Kwantlen Cultural Center. Joseph received a diploma in performing arts from Algonquin College and studied theater and direction at the University of Ottawa. He has just completed his residency as the storyteller in residence at the Vancouver Public Library, which is a beautiful library, by the way. He sits on the committee of the Canadian Museum of History and is tasked with consulting on the redesign of the new Children's Museum. He has published 13 books of poetry, and the latest are I Want by Leaf Press in 2015, and Hear and Foretell by Bookland Press, 2015, The Rumor, 2018, by Bookland Press in 2018, Shlom, the Doctor, Mawenzi Press, 2019, The Corrupted by Guernica Press, 2020, his children's play. Now there is a word in an Indigenous language I don't know how to pronounce, but I'm going to try. Thowixia, The Hungry Feast Dish by Playwrights Press Canada, 2019, his book of short stories and short plays for children. The Sasquatch, The Fire, and the Cedar Basket will be published by Nightwood Press, along with his poetry manuscript, Here We Come, 2020 to 2021. He is also very busy storytelling at many events and schools, which is probably what he's doing tonight. But I know that he wishes he could have been here. And if anyone has questions for him about the play, you can put them in the comments in the YouTube video and we will pass them along and he can come on and answer them. So with that, I will say good evening and thank you so much for joining us, everybody. And we'll see you next time. Good night, YouTube.